Francisco, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We are recording.
Cool. Yeah, we are. Can you hear me well?
Sure can. Can you?
Yep, I can. Cool. So for everyone who doesn't know who you are, Francisco, it's a tech lead at Datacom. He's originally from Honduras, Latin America. Francisco started his career in hospitality. Then he moved to New Zealand, and then he decided to do a career change into software development. And yeah, today we are going to be talking with him about his experience as a software developer, and we will ask him to share with us some tips on how he was able to grow so quickly in his career. If I'm not wrong, I guess that you went from a graduate software developer to tech lead in less than 5 years?
In less than 4 years.
In less than 4 years. That's impressive. Good on you.
Thank you.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, Francisco, just tell us a little bit about you if you want. If there's something else you would like to share with us, and then yeah, we can jump straight away to the tips, and hopefully this can help other people that are starting their career.
Sure. All right. So yeah, first a little bit about myself. Just a little bit of what you mentioned already. So yes, my name is Francisco, and I've been living in Auckland, New Zealand for about 9 years, almost a decade. So
Okay.
coming to New Zealand, I actually studied and worked in hospitality. So about a few years after working in hospitality, I decided to make a career change because I did think for a while that I did, or I might enjoy programming. So that's what I did. So long story short, I got into the university here in Auckland, and I did basically a 1-year graduate diploma. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I pretty much studied and worked my way through the graduate diploma. And fortunately, after I completed my graduate diploma, I obtained a graduate role at Intergen, which is a New Zealand IT services company.
So you studied for 1 year, and after finishing your studies, you got a job in Intergen as a graduate developer.
Well, the program is meant to last 1 year, so I'll just put an asterisk there. So the thing is that because I was doing it like almost part-time, it took me about a year and a half to complete. And at the same time, I actually did more courses than required. So just my first tip for anyone that's actually looking to get into the graduate diploma in computer science wagon is, in my personal view, those sorts of programs that only last for 1 year, if you ask me, they're pretty good if you want to get into IT, but more from a business side of view. For example, if you want to become a business analyst, but if you want to get more into the technical side of things, again, this is just my opinion, but a 1 year degree like that just doesn't cut it. You either have to learn some things on your own or take additional courses, which was the path that I took.
Okay, so your first tip would be or study more on your own or take more courses at uni.
Yeah, so my first tip would be, if you go to university, and naturally you might be paired up with I'm lost for words. People that advise you, an advisor, right? An academic advisor. So you might be paired up with an academic advisor, and that person, he or she, might recommend which papers to take. But the truth of the matter is that most academic advisors at university, even professors, most of their experience lies in the academic field. I'm not saying this is all of them, but a lot of people at the university have been outside of the industry for a while. Hence,
okay, so basically what you're saying is that you will need more practical experience, more hands-on experience.
yeah. So I suppose that is tip number one. If you're looking to get into IT and you are still considering studying, for instance, that is tip number one. Tip number one is don't just rely on your academic advisors. Don't just
Okay.
rely on university. Tip number one is actually try to go out there and try to meet someone or a few people with actual on the field experience.
Okay.
That person will, in my opinion, be way better suited to guide you on what you need to study, whether it be at the university or on your own, in order
Okay.
to get
Cool.
an actual technical job.
Great. So the other day I was talking to this guy who was wanted to transition from hospitality to
Oh, look at that.
to technology role. He didn't know what kind of role. But basically my question is, how did you figure out that you wanted to get into programming coming from hospitality?
Well, I mean, each person's story is different, I'm sure, but in my particular case, I remember so I was working at a hotel, and at the time, my manager was asking me for some Excel reports. Come to think about it now, it wasn't anything too fancy, but I did have to write some Excel formulas, and there was a little bit of programming logic involved, if you might say.
Okay.
I just remembered, based on writing those Excel reports, that I actually really enjoyed doing that. So
Okay.
I thought I'd just take it to the next level, and that's my case.
Makes sense. Makes complete sense. Cool. Let's jump to tip number 2.
All right. Okay. So tip number 2, and to be honest, if you would have asked me, this should be tip number 1 for anyone, not just in IT. But tip number 1 is stay healthy. So
Tip number 2. Number 1. Sorry. Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, if you ask me again, what's tip number 1?
Okay.
I would start off with that one right off the bat.
Stay healthy.
Stay healthy. So this is
What
not
do you
just
mean by stay healthy?
yeah. Okay. So this doesn't just apply for IT, but in my experience, see what happened is working in a hospitality background, I had to stand and walk a lot, which is in one way or another, it's beneficial for your health. What I did notice almost immediately after I started working in the IT sector is naturally because I was sitting in front of a computer screen for about 7 or 8 hours a day, I immediately started noticing the physical effects, like the harmful physical effects, starting with my back. I'm not saying that this is everyone's case, but what I'm saying is don't fall into the trap of any office job, especially IT, of just sitting down. It's just not healthy. So what I would recommend is if you're working, try to not only try to work standing up if you can, but also take lots of breaks, walk around, stretch, take a walk around the park if you're lucky enough to work somewhere where you can actually do that. And so
that's something that we can do nowadays.
yeah,
with the lockdown.
yeah, definitely. And the other thing about staying healthy is, besides mobility, my other advice to anyone is just remember always, just remember that stress actually physically harms you. So for any job that you might be doing today or in the near future or in the future, just remember not to take it too seriously, because at the end of the day, remember, stress will have a toll on you. So just remember that.
Good advice. Good advice. Cool. Great. So now I guess that we change number 1 to stay healthy. Number 2, probably find a good advisor on what you're going to study, and study more than 1-year programs. Put some time aside to learn more stuff. So what would be your tip number 3?
All right. So tip number 3, as someone that's starting off either learning or just basically starting off working in IT,
Yep.
always remember to learn the basics. So what I've seen from my colleagues, especially graduates and junior developers, they fall into the trap of wanting to walk or run before they can even crawl. So what I mean by that is, let's just say that you are trying to do some front-end development, for example. So you might be tempted to just right off the bat just start learning React or Vue.js, for example. But what a lot of graduate and junior developers skip is to really, really learn. And when I say learn, I mean learn properly and try to like really understand how pure, what in other words, what they call vanilla, pure JavaScript, CSS, and whatever your backend language, for example, C#, whatever your backend language might be. Just learn the basics first, and then you can move on to a framework.
I do a lot of interviews and I talk a lot to hiring managers, and most of them, when they're looking for someone to hire, they are looking for people that understand why they're doing what they're doing, and understands what React or Vue or Angular or whatever the framework is doing actually. So I guess that's what you mean by learning the basics, is like learn how it works, the framework itself.
Yes. As long as you understand the concepts, learning any framework will just be the easiest thing in the world. Let me give you one real world example. Last year, I interviewed a candidate as a C#.NET developer. So this particular candidate, he had more experience using Node.js instead of ASP.NET Core.
Yep.
However, we did determine that this candidate, even though their C#.NET skills weren't up to date, let's say, he did understand lots of basic concepts really well. So eventually, we ended up hiring this candidate, and he learned another framework, in this case, ASP.NET Core, relatively fast, and he's doing really well. So that's what we mean by the concepts are more important than knowing any framework.
Cool. Great. Cool. It's now time for number 4.
Number 4. Okay. Number 4, and just for any viewer, just remember that not necessarily these are in order of priority.
Okay.
But yeah. So
Except
anyway,
stay healthy.
Except for stay healthy, yes, for sure. Yeah. So number 4, and this is a tricky one. Number 4 is communication skills. So what I've noticed in my personal experience in the IT sector is that whether it's customers or managers, and I'm sure even startups, sure, any startup, any customer, any manager, they will value that you are really good at what you do technically. They will for sure value that. But you're sorry.
That's a must that you need to have. Like you need to be technically good enough.
For sure. But that can only get you so far. Really, the easiest way to stand out in the IT sector is if you have this rare ability, which is to be good on a technical level, but also have good communication skills. I know communication skills is a soft skill, but trust me, that combination, technical skills and soft skills in the IT sector, by my experience, it is a rarity. So for some, it might be easier because for some soft skills like communication skills come more naturally. And for some, it doesn't. I'm not saying that everyone must go out there and be a leader. No, not everyone is meant to be a leader. But what I'm saying, whether you're already naturally good at communicating or not, it for sure doesn't help to practice communication, whether it be through a formal course or any method that you deem
Cool.
worthy.
I completely agree, and everyone says that, not everyone, but I read a lot of articles and posts and blogs, and everyone is saying that communication it's more important. And I usually tend to say you need some level of technical skills, and when you reach those levels of technical skills, then communication is, as you are saying, the perfect combination. But let's go a little bit deeper on what it means, good communication skills for you.
Right. So remember, even if you're just purely a developer, you will need to get in touch with either a customer, either a manager, either a business analyst, to basically discuss requirements. So in my experience, it happens quite a lot that tech leads, people that have already been in the industry for a while, they don't do so well, in my opinion, because like they might be brilliant technically, but when it comes to explaining to junior developers, intermediate developers, what the requirements are, or when it comes to discussing those requirements with clients, even though they know exactly what to do, they just don't know how to translate that into words. So what ends up happening is that there's an iterative cycle of trial and error. So developers will spend a lot of time and money on developing something, and then say that during a UAT process, when the requirement is tested, it just goes back. And anyway, that does cost time and money. Second and lastly is any company very, very much values the ability to be able to mentor other people. So if you want to progress in any industry, really, but if you want to progress in the IT industry, you do have to show that you can mentor other people, because as a tech lead, as a software architect, you really must be good at that. So having good communication skills, that takes you a long way.
Cool. Great. There is this Toastmasters International. I usually recommend that to everyone who wants to improve their communication skills. I don't know if you have heard of that.
And just as a note for any viewer, we are not getting sponsored by Toastmasters.
No, definitely not.
You can feel free to research any course that you deem necessary. But yes, I have heard, and yes, I've heard it's really good.
It's really good, and there are a few different places in Auckland where you can go meet friends, or get new friends, and yeah, it's super challenging. Definitely will get you out from your comfort zone, but I think it's a good thing to do. Cool. Number 5. Almost half.
Okay, number 5. Yeah. Number 5 is, again, not necessarily in priority order, but number 5 is simply don't burn out. So what do I mean by that? So by don't burn out is that a lot of graduate and junior developers, naturally they want to move up really fast. So they find themselves in what's commonly known in IT as tutorialitis hell. So they find themselves trying to learn too much too quickly, and they might succeed at that. But the problem is that obviously that takes a lot of your free time. And not only that, you run into the risk of whenever you work too much and learn too much too quickly, you don't feel like you enjoy it anymore. And it just feels like work. So when you burn out, then worst case scenario, you're just gonna not want to work in IT. And not worst case scenario, you're just gonna not want to continue learning things. So what I'm saying is, do always remember that there has to be a work-life balance. On the long run, you will learn more if you manage to.
Sorry to interrupt you, Francisco, but how did you manage that? Because you went from graduate to tech lead in less than 4 years. I'm sure that you spend a lot of hours. And how did you manage to not to burn out?
That's a totally good and valid question. So I suppose it's just a matter of motivation. I suppose, because if there's no motivation, you're just not going to learn. Period.
Okay.
That's one. My motivation
So
is
your reason on why you are doing that.
yeah. So my motivation is very high. I just want to progress in IT, but not only that, I actually genuinely love learning. That helps a lot. But besides motivation, I suppose discipline is key. So what I'm saying is, for example, I mean, each person can draw out their own schedule or manage their time however suits best. But in my case, what suits best is perhaps I will take as a task to maybe dedicate on average 1 to 2 hours a day on self-learning. Nothing more than that.
Weekends?
Come again, sorry?
Including the weekends?
Well, yes, actually, I'll just be honest, and including the weekends, but on average per day, I would say nothing more than 2 hours, 1 hour if you're a really fast learner. But what I'm saying is don't try to learn for like 5 hours a day. You'll just burn yourself out.
Cool.
So yeah, that's
makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So it's more about being consistent and have the discipline to be able to do it over time, more than trying to learn everything in a few months and then dropping out.
Yeah, and just another thing to consider is that, remember, every person is different. So whereas I might find it easy to learn on my own, other people just might find it easier to sit inside a classroom. So if that's you, then obviously that tip doesn't necessarily apply to you. There's other things you can do. You can
we're all
look for
different.
additional courses. But yeah,
Definitely.
just keep that in mind.
Definitely. Francisco, I don't know if you can see me well, but definitely night it's coming and I don't have the best light in this room, but in this lockdown it's the only room I have available. If not, we should be doing the call with my 5 months old one. who
I can see well. Can you see me well, by the way?
Oh, yeah, perfectly. Yeah.
All right.
So cool. Let's jump to number 6, if I'm not wrong. Yep. Number 6.
Number 6. Okay, number 6 would have to be okay. So once you're working professionally as a software developer, what I would recommend, and this is a skill that even myself I'm still struggling to attain, but it's very difficult to balance code quality and code quantity.
Okay.
So yeah, so
I like this one.
Yeah, I mean that's a really tricky one, because naturally as software developers we get paid for our time. So naturally any client, any customer, any person that wants a piece of software, they're gonna want that piece of software done as quick as possible, because obviously that's cheaper. So you might just feel tempted to lower quality in favor of quantity. So I don't have any particular straightforward advice on this. It's just try to always try to teach yourself however you can. And if I had a magic answer to this, I would just give it now. But try to teach yourself however you can on how to balance between code quality and code quantity. So what I'm saying with this is, wherever you deem necessary, try to be a pragmatic software developer. Let me at least give you an example. So let's just say that there is a software requirement. So for example, okay, let's just say that you have to build a simple one-page website. Okay, So you might be tempted because, I don't know, because it's cool to just use the latest and greatest tools, maybe use an awesome framework like React or Vue, and then for just the one-page website. I'm not talking about a single-page application. I'm just talking about one HTML document, right? All right, okay. You might be tempted to use all the latest and greatest tools. I don't know, use Webpack and build this awesome environment, right? So that probably took you like a whole day. And then the actual requirement, the actual code, that might only take you 10 minutes maybe. I'm exaggerating, right? But
Yeah.
you get the idea. So what I'm saying on being pragmatic, in this example, which is probably not a real life example, but in this example, you might just say, okay, I really don't need all these tools. I will just use like raw HTML and raw JavaScript, and I'll get the job done in 20 minutes. And if in the future more requirements come up as an iterative approach, I can maybe decide to refactor and maybe make it more future proof. So I hope with that example I can at least
Okay. So let's see if myself without technical skills understood. So basically, it's the tools you need for the task you need to do, and not just use the tools that are more interesting to use or to learn to do something that's not needed.
Well, I mean, that was just one example. It's not necessarily
exactly. Yeah, for that
about
example, I mean.
Yeah, correct. But it's not exactly about the tools. It's just yeah. I mean, just try to find that balance. Maybe it's not the fancy. I mean, try to find that balance. Maybe it's not necessary to do something the fanciest, most future-proof way. Maybe you can really go without just doing it a little bit quicker if you reduce your quality, but you and only you can be the judge of that.
Yeah, I understand, but I don't know if the example I will share with you now makes sense to what you are trying to address. But as a technical recruiter, I manage a lot of tasks for my clients, technical tasks, and feedback on candidates' technical tasks many times is that they over-engineered the solution, and they were just asking for something simple that could be done with, in this case, HTML, and they decided to do something like thinking more in the future, but that was not the requirement. And I guess here is where you might, because of the restraint of time, you might not focus on quality just because you are using something that requires more time, but then you don't have it.
Yeah, and the keyword there is balance. So I'm not saying skip quality. I'm just saying don't do too much quality and don't do things too much in a bad way, even if that makes you faster, right? Just try to find that perfect balance.
Cool, great, makes sense. I really like this tip. Probably it's what people that are already hands-on struggling with, I guess. But yeah, what would be number 7?
Number 7. Okay, number 7 would be, okay, number 7 would be practice. Practice a lot. So a lot of people that like to self-learn, they might watch, for example, a video tutorial. And sure, it might be easy to understand a set video tutorial. And that's good, but that's only half of your learning. You're only halfway there. Thing is that even if you watch that tutorial, you understood it, you're gonna probably forget very soon. It's a lot of concepts are really gonna stick if you actually do. So what I'm saying by that is, say that you watch a video tutorial, try to do that same example or even better. Try to do an example of your own based on what you've just learned. So let me give you an example. Let's just say that you just learned the basics of how to use React. So maybe in the video tutorial, they were teaching you how to write, I don't know, a counter or a timer, for example. Simple tutorial, right? So maybe you can take it to the next step. So based on the concepts that you've just learned, actually step back and maybe try to do your own example, and I don't know, maybe try to do your own React calculator. So thing is, you're gonna struggle to do the calculator, but the thing is that you're gonna have to go back to the video. You're gonna have to even go online and actually learn extra stuff. But all those key concepts and skills will just really stick. And in the future, you will find them immediately available in your toolbox, those skills.
Cool. That's a pretty good one. And again, I guess with what you are saying is that there's no way to cut corners, and you just have to spend time and hours and practice, not only practicing the exercise that they gave you, but try to do some new ones. This reminds me to a math professor I had. It's like, if I show you in the whiteboard, you will see and you will understand. But if I ask you to do that equation yourself, you will learn it. And if you do new exercises based on those things that you learn, probably you're going to be able to pass the exam.
Oh yeah, almost definitely. Yeah,
exactly. Cool. Number 8. We're getting there. Very good.
Number 8. Thank you. Number 8 is practically a copy paste of 7. I'll just say it again. And the reason why I made this number 8 is just to emphasize practice. So again, a lot of developers might be tempted to learn as fast as possible, but this is a mistake. Like I say, you might be learning some skills really fast, but they'll just fade away really fast as well. So it's really way more worth it to just take your time. When I mean practice, if, for example, you're doing a course or a module, actually consider that module complete, and until you really are really confident that you've understood it. Don't worry if it takes extra time. And again, if it helps to build your own examples, then by all means, go for it.
So there's a lot of people that they go to these 1-year programs to learn how to do software development. There's a lot of places where you can go to take these programs. And I usually tend to tell those people that are studying or just finished studying to try to create projects on their own, their own projects. And I guess that this might be kind of similar to what you're saying. Practice in tip number 7, it's practice a lot. Tip number 8, it's practice even more. What was your experience? How you were practicing a lot? You had one specific project that it was a real application that you are building on your own. You are just taking tutorial and doing all these small things once and again and going to the next level. How did you do it?
Well, okay. I think that the theme might be sounding to just as like go off and look at tutorials, but I really don't want that to be the theme because in reality, the quickest way to learn things and the best way to learn things is actually at work, like professionally. So to be honest with you, I would say, I don't know, I'm just making these numbers up, but probably like say 60 to 70% of the knowledge I have is through actually working. But that other 40% of learning on your own, that's what I'm talking about. When you're practicing by yourself, do try to build things as if you were actually at work. Otherwise, it's really hard to learn things. And all that bodes well into the next tip, mind you. once you're ready to go into that one.
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So yes, so very related to what we were saying about building things on your own. So another tip for not just graduates or juniors or intermediate developers, for any developer on any stage of their careers, tip is try to have an online presence. So, okay, so by online presence, that's very vague. I know. Online presence can mean a variety of things. Let me just give you examples. So online presence can be, for instance, maybe you understand a particular topic really well, so you decide to write an article on platforms like Medium, for example. Another one would be maybe you're really good at making YouTube videos, so you decide to make YouTube videos as tutorials. That gives you really great exposure, really good online presence. Another one might be do open source software. That's an excellent exposure. Or even simply, even if it's not for open source software, even if it's not a real product, just try to have an active GitHub profile or GitLab's profile. Because I say this as someone that also interviews candidates. See, one of the things that myself, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people that are interviewing, one of the things that they like to notice is candidates with online presence. So, for instance, myself, I will, for instance, look at the candidate's online profile. So in their CV, I will first look and see if they have a GitHub profile. If they do, I'll definitely go and check that out. If they have other things like YouTube videos, articles, that's a really big tick mark. And why is that? Because someone that does so stands out from the crowd a lot. So when a lot of candidates are trying to interview for the one position, that will make you stand out a lot, as opposed to candidates that don't have online presence.
Yeah.
And not only that, it gives a really, really good idea to the potential employer that you are a motivated individual. And that's something that companies always look for. Because again, I can maybe teach you how to do certain things, but I cannot teach you motivation.
Yeah, cool. Can I add one more online presence?
Go for it.
LinkedIn. If you're looking
for sure.
Definitely post your Medium articles on LinkedIn, post your YouTube videos on LinkedIn. If you're working on a new project on and you have it in GitHub or GitLabs, they changed their name, by the way?
GitLabs.
Or GitHub? Yeah.
Oh, GitHub is still same.
Okay, sorry. So I didn't knew the GitLabs. Anyway, doesn't matter. Or if you're working on a new project, make sure that you share that project on LinkedIn. Something that once I basically one hiring manager told me about this GitHub account of this person was, make sure that you have the best things that you want to show, not the ones that were you practice and you leave it there and you know it's wrong, but you didn't remove it.
That is a very good tip. So just a reminder to any viewer, fortunately now, in 2020, GitHub does allow for private repositories. So go ahead and set any repository that you don't deem good enough for public, just set it as private. That's a good tip.
Exactly. Yeah, cool. Well, let's go to the last one, number 10.
Number 10. Okay, last but definitely not least is whenever you're learning things, whether it be on any tutorial or whether it's at work, try to have a high level understanding of whatever you're learning. Try to always ask yourself one really important question. It's only 3 letters, but it's so important. Why? So, for instance, if I would say 90% of developers, whenever they're trying to meet a requirement, whenever they're trying to accomplish some code, they might just Google, go to Stack Overflow, maybe copy paste, maybe look at a little bit of documentation and get the requirement working. and then that's it. And then they just forget about it. That other 10%, the 10% that actually stands out as senior developers, that 10% will actually wonder why. I mean, why did this code work? Why did I have to do it this way? So then that other developer, even though it obviously takes extra time, that other developer is either on their free time or not, they just go back and actually try to investigate the theory behind whatever you're doing. And once you have the high-level concepts, once you understand the theory, that is the quickest way of getting good enough to be a senior developer.
Cool. I really like this one. I think that number one, definitely stay healthy. But I would say that maybe in order of priorities, understand why. And this is what I see hiring managers looking for when they're looking for senior developers, people that really can understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, let me give you one really good example of interviewing practices for senior developers, mind you. So, okay, this is, in my opinion, a really good interview question for a senior developer. The thing about senior developers is we're usually not interested in knowing that they know how to do something. I mean, senior developers, even if they don't know how to do something in particular, they can learn it quickly. That's a senior developer. What makes a senior developer stand out is that, again, them actually challenging things, asking why. So let me give you a concrete example. Imagine that during a job interview, the interviewer asks the senior developer, imagine that I am the customer. Me as the customer, I have a requirement to you, the senior developer. Imagine that my requirement is on my system, on the 4th week, at the end of every month, I need to produce this report. So how do you make that happen in code? Now, the thing is that most developers that are intermediate or below will just stand up immediately, go to the drawing board, and then just start teaching them how to code. Whereas the senior developer will just actually listen to the question carefully and then just say, hold on, what are you talking about? You're saying every 4 weeks at the end of the month, but 4 weeks is 28 days. It's not necessarily the end of the month. So that's what I mean.
Requirements.
You know? Yes. So that's what distinguishes a senior developer from not a senior developer, in my opinion.
Okay, cool, great. Focusing on the requirements and focusing on the end result of what you're going to be trying to achieve at the end of the day.
Yes, and always ask why.
Cool, great. Well, Francisco, thank you very much for your time. I find your tips very valuable. Hope people that are watching this video find the same. Thanks a lot again for your time. And yeah, I guess that once the lockdown is finished, we can catch up for a beer.
We'll sure do, for sure.
Great, Francisco. Thank you very much, and talk soon.
All right. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Bye-bye.
Bye.